Okay, great.
Yeah. So you're not driving right now, are you?
No, I'm actually sitting in my truck, but I'm not driving.
Okay. Well, that's good.
David,
So
this
go
just
ahead, Bob.
came out 30 minutes ago, obviously, and we may not have the biggest live audience today, but we wanted to just kind of do something. I think it's a big deal. So I'll let Patrick kind of intro what was going on, and then for anyone who is joining us, this is David Johnston. He's a guy that I was able to get in touch with earlier this year, or he initiated that conversation. Really, he's two times Masters Games athlete.
Yeah, well, 3 if you include 2020, but we know how that went.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2.
Times qualifier. Participated every year they allowed him to. And
Yeah,
second
right.
place 2021 in the 40 to 44 men's division. And David, what's your affiliation with the Masters Chatter podcast?
No, I just know those guys. I'm not on. I've been on the podcast once, but I'm not really affiliated with them like that.
Nice. And then David, David and I have had some conversations this year about different things that are going on in the Masters community, how the community as a large feels about some of the ways that the season's unfolded this past year and has changed over the last couple of years. And I thought, knowing that he has experience being a games athlete himself multiple times, and also has taken a big interest in assessing and evaluating how the Masters community feels about the things that certain things have gone, that he might be a fun person to have on and talk about today's announcement, which is for next season, but has some big implications. So I'll let Patrick kind of walk us through that, and then we'll see what you think about it.
Yeah, so CrossFit sent out an email, like that's 1:00 Eastern. It's probably one of those worst kept secrets. There's rumors about this. I don't know, David, maybe Brian, you can chime in on this, but I felt like this is something that's been in the works since maybe before COVID, when they talked about like the age group divisions, the other division outside of the elite individual. But basically, CrossFit's announcing that the games will no longer support or host the adaptive, masters, and team divisions. So what they've done instead is partnered with additional entities, and we'll talk about those entities, to host these events outside of the CrossFit Games. So what we're used to, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was it 2015 was when they first brought in the Masters division, or was it 2013?
No, 2011 for the Masters, 2015 for the teenagers.
That's what it was.
Adaptive was after that.
Yeah, the adaptive was 2021, I believe. So, and that would all encompass basically the games week, whether it happened during the same time as the elite individuals, or like they've done the last couple of years, where they kind of had a couple days where they had the masters and the teenagers and the adaptive kind of go before the actual elite did. So this announcement, like, again, probably one of the worst kept secrets after the games moving locations to Texas, was announced properly today officially. So I would kind of go read through this real quick. CrossFit announces championship partners for Masters Team Adaptive Divisions. Legends Championship, which will be occurring this December. Teen Throwdown, which Brian was recently attended, and WheelWOD Games, which I believe Brian is attending this year, set to host championship events. So that hits on the Masters, the Team Division, and the Adaptive Division. In the second series announcement, CrossFit LLC today introduced partnerships to help expand and add more exposure to the adaptive and age group divisions. Legends Championship, Teen Throwdown, and WheelWOD Games will host a championship for the 2024 CrossFit Games. And here's a quote from Dave. We believe this is a move that will benefit each division in significant ways. Most importantly, move that doubling qualifying spots for masters and teams and allow every adaptive division a place at the in-person championship, said Dave Castro, General Manager of Sport and Education at CrossFit. Masters athletes represent more than half the CrossFit Open participants. Combined with the teams and adaptive divisions, these athletes sit at the core of the sport's continued growth. It's the right thing to do to reward each group with their own distinct championship event and expand our overall championship season. And then age group athletes will follow traditional CrossFit Games through the first 3 stages. So it looks like there's an indication that none of the stages will be changing for this upcoming season based on that statement. Beating the CrossFit Open and advancing to quarterfinals, semifinals, before moving on to their respective championship, whether it be the Teen Throwdown, Legends, or WheelWOD. And they will be in collaboration with CrossFit. And they will host the entire competition season for adaptive athletes from the WheelWOD Open through the finals.
All right. So we'll pause there for a second.
Sure.
So big picture. There's going to be multiple locations for the different divisions of the CrossFit Games next year. David, based on your experience as an athlete competing at the games and the pulse that you have on the Masters community as a whole, and I think we'll try to focus on the Masters community for this. We will have some opportunity to speak with one of the directors of WheelWOD next week. So we'll talk more specifically about the adaptive next week because that's going to be, I think, even different than what's going on for the age groups and the teenagers as well. We're going to get a chance to have Brock Yost on, who's the event director for Teen Throwdown, next week also. So we'll try to stick to Masters today, David. That's obviously who you are and who you know about. First thoughts about these announcements.
I think it's great. I think, a lot of people talk about the Masters doesn't get their due and things don't play out the way they'd like for them to play out. And for them to hand it over to two people like Joe and Bob, who are, a lot of people are talking it, but Joe and Bob are out there doing it. I know there's some other people out there too, but these guys really have the best interest in mind, or our best interest in mind as a Masters community, and they're out there just doing a lot of different things to try to make it grow. And so I think for them to put it into their hands is probably the best move they could have done, considering I think they've tapped out on what they're willing to put into it at the games itself.
Yeah, I think that, and as Patrick mentioned, there's been these ebbs and flows in terms of how the Masters CrossFit Games has integrated with the elite level CrossFit Games, and that's changed in terms of timing. Where they used to go earlier in the week and then kind of bleed into the individual. Then there was a period of time where they were competing on the same days, but in mostly distinct venues on the same property. And then there was the ebbs and flows with coverage. We had full years of coverage of the Masters events at the CrossFit Games. And then this year, obviously, minimal coverage of the CrossFit Games for the Masters community, of which people surely had their opinions about. Have you done the Legends? Have you competed in their competitions before?
Yeah, I have. I won 2020 and 2021, and I think I finished 13th. I think this year, something like that. So yeah, it's a great competition. I think, and I always say 2021 Legends was the hardest competition I've ever done as far as programming from start to finish. It was legit. So there are many games athletes who, Masters Games athletes that have also competed at those. Is that kind of a sentiment that friends or peers of yours have had as well? Exactly. Yep. It's like it's a Games 2.0. Each year.
And they did have a fairly, and I wouldn't say it wasn't a complete, but it was a fairly good broadcast last year from the Legends Championship event that they hosted in Mayhem. And what I mean by not complete is that they didn't, there were various competition floors or events happening at the same time, and they didn't cover everything every day, but there was a long stream each day where you could watch the Masters coverage. How did you guys as athletes feel about what they did from a coverage standpoint last year? And is that something, or what would you be looking to see in terms of the presentation of that from them going forward?
Yeah, I think so 2021 was really good coverage. Last year was good coverage too. I think 2021 was probably the best with Annie Sakamoto, Bill Grunler, and Sean Woodland. Just hearing them say your name in any competition, whether it's the games or something like Legends, it's just when you watch it back, it just fires you up. And it's really good. I know in talks that I've had with Bob Jennings that streaming is very expensive. He's told me several times that it's very, very expensive to put on a live stream above and beyond what's just like a stationary camera. So I know that that's difficult to do, but I mean, that is what people would like to see. I feel like the guys who made it to the games, I didn't go to the games this year, but booting it up or pulling it up on the screen and getting ready to watch it, and you can't see anything. I don't know. I feel like there's got to be a happy medium somewhere. So I'm sure Bob and Joe will find that. Or at least I hope they will. So yeah, so we'll see. I know that's what people want. They want to kind of have some sort of something they can go back to and watch, or if they have friends and family, because a lot of people aren't going to travel to see us. So being able to have them watch. I know people here at work will sit around and watch me on the days that I was going. So it's kind of nice.
They're not working.
Yeah, everybody gets a break, right, at their lunch.
Yeah, sure. It's taking lots of breaks.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to attend the 2020 Legends Championship, which was in right outside of Phoenix. It was during COVID, and that's where I first got to meet Bob and Joe. And God, those two guys, you will not find a more passionate two individuals regarding the Masters division. Not just like the 35 to 39, every age group. And it was so cool because it was like my first only Masters 1 competition I attended. And this was right in the height of heart of COVID. And just what they did to make that happen. And David, you said you were there that year, correct?
I was there. Yeah, they had to get several, from what I understand, they did it. It was in a parking lot. They had to get several permits to make it work. And then they had 6-foot circles that you had to stand in, and only 6 people could be in the circles at a time. And that's how they did the permitting to make the event work.
Yeah, I remember going from circle to circle.
I mean, that's a passion you're talking about that they have, is that they wanted to find a way to make it work, even when the odds were against them.
And then the following year, they moved it back to Southern California, because both those guys are from Southern California, I believe, around the San Diego area. And they hosted, and they partnered with, and I remember talking about 2020 about them really wanting a broadcast. And then they reached out to the Talking Elite Fitness people, were able to bring them in on board for that 2022. And then them going this past year to Mayhem. And then taking advantage of that, and just they've shown so much growth in just 3 years than I've ever seen in any other competition. In terms of being able to move around, I mean, it's really easy for those guys being from Southern California and being like, "Hey, we're just going to have it here in Southern California." But these guys are so many; they're open to ideas, they listen, and I think this is just a perfect example of them kind of taking the ball and running with it, and kind of showing CrossFit that they can hold a class event and showcase. And I think what they mentioned in the email was the ability to expand those age groups. And I know, Brian, you have some opinions on that in terms of the past couple of years, them only allowing 10. So this year, we don't know, but go ahead.
Yeah, there were two things about this that I really did want to ask David specifically about, and we can start with that one. It's kind of in here. It's not like a super highlighted part of the email, but Dave says, most importantly, more than doubling qualifying spots for masters and teams and allowing every adaptive division a place at the in-person championship. Again, we'll focus on the adaptive next week, but more than doubling the qualifying spots for masters and teams means that in a vacuum, there, instead of being 10 spots per place, there'll be at least 20, more than 20 potentially in some divisions that they're going to more than double. And then there have been 20 in some years in the past. There was 10, it's kind of been going back and forth.
Yeah, it's up and down.
And I think to the detriment of the overall competition, and the general justification is on the cost perspective. But what do you think about that? I mean, you've competed in a couple different CrossFit Games and tried to make some other ones. What do you think about having more available spots at the live competition at the end of the season?
Yeah, I definitely think that I think it definitely needs to be more than 10. I don't think that that's a good field. I mean, there have been several instances where people have qualified in the teens and come back to podium. So, I mean, they're players, in the way that the score plays out. But to speak to this, I don't know if you guys saw, but Dave Castro put out his weekend review almost instantaneously after they released this. So, and he did say in there that he's going to, or that it's going to be 30 or 40 possibly for some of the age groups. So, and I think the way he made it sound is as it goes to the older age group and participation kind of goes down, the numbers of the representative numbers will also go down.
Yeah, which is something that I highlighted and we talked about during the earlier parts of this season already, is that at the upper end, in the male 36 to 39, they were over 36 to 39 or 35 to 39. Is that right? 36, 35?
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
30.
There were over 36,000 people that registered. And then at the top divisions, the 60 plus divisions, there were less than 1,500 across the board, and they were all getting 10 spots to the games. And contrast that with the adaptive divisions, where if you didn't have enough spots, you didn't get any place, registrants, then you didn't get any places at the CrossFit Games. So it was kind of weird inconsistency there, in my opinion. If that's the case, and there's a tapering of spots based on participation, whether it's looking backwards to last year or based on registration for this year's Open, which I think having some thresholds and the registration from each year's Open dictating that is a cool idea to drive involvement and participation in the Open. And then subsequently you can say, yeah, it's, over 30,000, you guys get 40 spots, over 20,000, you get 30, over 10,000, you get 20, under 10,000, you get 10, something along those lines makes a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, though, you think that we don't know the extent of, maybe, and this is something we'll probably learn more next week, obviously, with talking to some of the event organizers, is how much control the event organizers can have in this. I mean, you've been to Pit Teen. It's a huge venue, but at the same time, you cannot, I mean, you're kind of it's a huge venue, but they don't obviously have maybe the infrastructure in place to kind of support like coaches, athletes, just, I don't know. It just seems like some of these places may not, depending on what the host site is, they might not be able to host like 40 people in every division. And if that's
teenagers a lot different. There's 4 divisions as opposed to 16, presumably masters divisions. So it's, a little different logistically to try to coordinate for those two things. And yeah, the one thing that I would say is missing from these announcements that I would love to see, and I understand that there's reasons why, is like where and when are they going to be? And yeah, this is actually the other thing, John, that I was wanting to ask David about. So it's directly reading from the email here. Age group athletes will follow the traditional CrossFit Games season through the first 3 stages by competing in the CrossFit Open, advancing to quarters, and advancing to semis before moving on to their subsequent championship event. In the Masters Legends qualifiers over the last several years, those are live qualifiers for the most part. I think there is an online one, but there are a lot of opportunities to qualify live. I actually went to one that Chase Ingram hosted in Dallas 2 years ago. David, what are your initial thoughts on continuing to have these online stages of qualifying for the live championship event in 2024? And do you think there's possibility that if this goes well, that we move away from that in years following?
I know Legends now has a handful of spots, like 10 spots or something like that they do for live in competition spots. Then they have the online qualifier, and then they also do invites for people who, depends on the year, they change it. So I have mixed emotions about another. So for Masters athletes, we're obviously not in it for the money, right? So if you add in another stage where we have to travel, I think it adds to the legitimacy of the people who actually do make it. So you know that those people were judged, they were all put through the same, the same tests, everybody's put through the same test, but everybody's put through the same test in the same way. I think that helps because there's always been problems with video review. I know that some of the things that Joe and Bob did this year was, if you're doing burpees over something, just get over it. So it makes it a little bit easier to judge, and stuff like that helps. So I have mixed emotions about it. I can see it, benefits to both ways. I know for me, I don't want to have to travel to, Orlando to try to qualify, but I can also see the point where I do, because I think that would play to my benefit. So, I mean, yeah, my curiosity is who's programming and how does that play into, how does programming for the first 3 stages play into programming for the end? I would like to have seen, I'm a huge fan of Bob's programming, huge fan. So I would have liked to have seen him program some of this, but I'm biased in that way. So I don't know. Yeah. I feel like it's probably something that's going to change within the next year or two. Totally guessing, but as they refine it, I see some changes coming.
Yeah, I think that we could definitely expect there to be, it's a big change, and I don't know that that's realistic to change everything all at once in one season, but I think that a progression of changes is something that makes a lot of sense here. And the programming thing in particular is another topic that I've talked about a little bit this year. Is, if Adrian Bosman is taking on programming for 4 stages of the season for 27 different divisions, and he's the primary lead of that, I don't care who he is, that's a lot. Like that's a lot to get right. I see people that program or are hired to program off-season competitions that have half a dozen divisions, and it's still difficult to make sure that you're giving each one of those 6 divisions, the attention and care that they need, so that the athletes that are paying to compete there are having an experience that you would want them to have. So, in particular, when it says the WheelWOD Games in collaboration with CrossFit will host the entire competition for adaptive athletes from open through finals, I think that makes a lot of sense to me, because even though Adrian Bosman's been involved and intimately involved with watching the program develop for the CrossFit Games over 15 plus years, programming for adaptive competition, in my opinion, should be done by people that do those workouts, that need to do those workouts. And if you have someone like Kevin Ogar in that position, who knows what the multi-extremity divisions, the lower extremity, the upper extremity, the short stature, he knows the people who are most experienced in all of those and can integrate them into that. Well, the athletes are probably going to have a better experience from start to finish. Therefore, the fans watching will, and hopefully there'll be more people in those divisions that are like, these people do know what they're doing. They are taking care of the programming that caters to what I need, and then they can go from there. So maybe we see that over the course of a couple of years, a little bit of a transition in that regard. But I think at the very least, what you guys have both said is, about Brock Yost and about Joe and Bob, is that these guys had taken an initiative 4 years ago to make a championship event happen for their respective communities. And they've continued to invest in that in terms of their work, their life, their passion over the 4 years, and they haven't dropped the ball. They've just been continuing to push it forward. So I think that CrossFit's made some great decisions here in terms of who to partner with for these things. And I have some big hopes that these things are going to go well. David, I do want to ask you one other thing, and then we might let you go. We appreciate you taking some time for us. I know that there is a certain prestige that comes along with calling yourself a CrossFit Games athlete. I'm not sure what these events are going to be titled, and obviously they're not going to be taking place in the same location as the elite individuals and teams next season. Thoughts about that? Do you think that's just like more of a pride thing and people should let that go, or is that a real thing for people?
No, it's definitely a real thing. I mean, when you're at the games and you're walking around and you get to go in the same places as the elites, and you're a games athlete, to me, once I qualify for the games and I do that first event, that's when I'm kind of like, okay, I'm a games athlete this year. And you do hold your head a little higher. There is a lot of prestige that goes along with it because it is one big event. So that's the only thing I guess we're gonna have to see how it plays out, and to see now that it's split, is it gonna have a different feel? Is it gonna not carry the same because there's not gonna be as much money put towards that event? But yeah, I mean, I think for the people who have already been to the games, I think that's probably one of the biggest worries is not so much making it back, because I mean that's a fight every year, but what's it going to be like when you get there? Is it going to be that same feeling of like, I'm here with the best of the best? I mean, you will be within your respective divisions, but not having everybody there, and what kind of crowd is it going to bring? Yeah, I think that for people who have been there a couple of different times, I think that's probably the biggest thing on their mind about this.
Yeah, and I think that, I kind of like I think that it was important the way that CrossFit communicated these changes, because that was inevitably going to be a bummer for some people and a difficult pill to swallow.
Sure.
But partnering with established entities that have shown a lot of care for these communities over a period of years now, I think there's just tons of outstanding questions, but a big one is if the trade-off is that I give that up, but when I make it to the games, I get full coverage of the events streaming for my family, friends, coworkers, gym back home. You think that tips the scale enough?
Yeah, because I mean, you watch back some of these things, and it's like that live stream is really what's immortalized. You know, there's not many people who are going to go and travel. I have a handful of people that go with me when I go, but outside of that, the other people didn't get that experience. What they're going to see is the live stream. So like, you know, a year from now, we had who are you? What did you do? And I show them the streams, and it looks, you know, it's professionally edited, and I mean, it looks grander than it probably feels in the moment. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important for sure.
And I've spoken with a bunch of people about this over this travels I've been doing in the off season. But the other nice thing about having the events streamed is you can go watch them back yourself, because when you're doing them, you might think to yourself as an athlete, oh, I did that well, or man, I should have gone harder here. And then you can go back and find out if you're actually assessing your performance accurately or not. But you also get to watch the competitors, who are many times your friends. And for the most part, when you're competing, you might be paying attention to one or two people next to you, or the one guy that you need to beat during the end of the competition. But otherwise, it's really, you're in your own lane doing your own thing, and you don't know what's going on. And I think that for so many different reasons, having that live on is something that can be a huge plus, especially for the Masters community who have kids and grandkids that will at some point be wanting to watch those things.
Right.
I think the biggest question, though, for Masters athletes is the swag going to change?
Oh, we've thought about that too.
Oh, I mean, one thing I've learned about Masters, and this is a shout out to Tony Kurz. I don't know, David, you know Tony Kurz.
Oh, I know Tony. Yeah.
I remember he
we
cared
took a prom
about
picture.
Exactly.
We took a prom picture at check-in in 21. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But Tony always asked me these questions like, what about swag? What about the swag? So, and I know that's actually pretty cool. I mean, I joke about it, but at the same time, it's one of those things where you're proud to wear those jerseys, and you're at that same level of those elite athletes, because they're getting the same. You're not getting anything different than they are, right. And they're not getting anything different. And the whole check-in process where you have the locker rooms and your nameplate up there and everything. So it just kind of ties in with what John says here. This question here is, can the CrossFit Games present by something along those lines? Will primary sponsors still be involved? Curious to see how it all plays out. I think we all are. And I'm again, I get a lot of these questions answered next week is, some of these, for instance, like Legends has a really good relationship with X brand. Do they have to stick with the partner brands that CrossFit has? Because they are now, we don't understand. We don't know the details of the partnership with CrossFit, and if they have to stay aligned with those sponsors that CrossFit has. For instance, like I think the Teen Fitness, they had a partnership with Reebok. They provided a lot of their clothing and shoes and stuff like that, and that goes against the Noble partnership for the games. But it'll be interesting to see. But I do see a lot more opportunity, especially for sponsors, where you can hit up more specialized sponsors, sponsors that are more conducive or relate more to the Masters division or the team division or the adaptive division, where you can kind of branch off from, just sponsors that are more in focus with those groups.
Like a Hover Round or a Rascal or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For Masters, not but I just think it's stuff like that. But no, I think overall it's a there's still a lot of details. They haven't announced the date. We don't know if that's going to be something that's in line during the same time as the games or after or before. But we do know that the Legends are hosting an event, so they actually have the advantage, I think, over some of these other events. They get to start marketing themselves as a CrossFit event in December, because they're hosting an event in December, and they can start building interest up then. So it's pretty cool.
Well, it seems like the gloves are off, so I'm sure we'll start seeing tons and tons. And you know how the Masters are. We all start. Yeah, there's going to be lots of posts and lots of talking. So.
Yeah, and everyone's got an opinion too. That's one thing about us. I mean, we're all Masters here. Myself, Brian, you. I mean, but I think they have the right leadership, the right groups in hand to make this happen. Like you said, Bob and George, they're going to do an amazing job. They've done amazing by growing the division. They've whether it be through podcasts or just their events. They're all in, and I think it's really cool. It's going to benefit everybody at the end of the day.
Agreed.
All right, David, thank you for taking the time to come on with short notice.
Yeah.
We'll be excited to see what other announcements and changes that they roll down the pipeline. So maybe we'll invite you back on as those come up.
Yeah, anytime.
All right, thanks
again, David.
All right,
Appreciate
it. All right, thanks.
Oh, look who it is.
What's up, JR?
What's up?
One
kid's taking a nap. The other one's getting picked up from school. So
made it work.
We had a good time.
We'll take advantage of you while we got you here. Obviously, you have a lot on your mind. Crash Crucible's coming up this week, which we can talk about if you want to. But I think you have seen now the announcement CrossFit made today about the changes to next year's season for the non-elite divisions. They're calling them championship events, partnered with Legends Championship for the Masters, Teen Throwdown for the teenagers, and WheelWOD Games for the adaptive divisions. You have competed at the CrossFit Games as a Masters athlete. You've coached athletes to the games in a variety of different divisions. From the people you know and your own personal thoughts, what jumps out to you about this announcement today?
Yeah, I mean, I was listening on the way here, and I'll echo David's sentiments a little bit. That when I heard rumors about possibly the age group splitting off from the individuals, it did leave me a little bit let down from a standpoint of considering competition again in the future. My wife kind of jokes with me all the time and says, you have to stay in shape because I didn't get to go to the games to watch you. So you have to go back one day so that I can go. And so that's why you need to make sure you stay in shape, because you never know what year it'll happen. And when I heard that it might be a possibility, there was something about, like David said, being there, warming up, sharing a barbell with, Hobart, but then also maybe with Jason, and being back there with all the individuals, with all the teams. I didn't know how it would feel, but I can say that maybe not having that experience could leave me feeling a little bit, dissatisfied. And that's it's a lot of assumption. What I think it's going to be good for, though, is giving those age groups the spotlight and not having them look up into the crowds and seeing people leave, maybe that are just there to watch the individuals or teams. There'll be people there only to watch them. And I think that'll add a ton to the excitement and to the legitimacy.
What do you think about this, the second part of Dave's quote there that's on screen, potentially having more available spots at several of the divisions going forward?
Yeah, this is like a huge step in the right direction. I mean, the year that I was lucky enough to make it, it was supposed to be top 20. And there's no way I had a chance if it was top 10. And it's been 10, then it went to 20, then it went back to 10. And Dan didn't get to compete that year because of sickness. But thinking about the people that were at the games, like Adrian Conway, Kyle Kasperbauer, James Hobart, Zach Forrest, Dan Bailey, like some of them wouldn't have been in that field if it would have only been top 10. And at the games, much like going from the open to quarters to semis that's in person, you'll have people at the games that can really excel because they can swim, or because they can really run, or because they know how to push a sled, or because they're good at odd objects that a lot of time that in the gym stages of competition cannot program for. So you'll see outliers that finish 18th, 19th, 20th, maybe even 25th if they take the top 30. They'll be able to go to the games and make some noise. And I think when you have a bigger set of people, it's way more exciting. With 10 people, you kind of know after the first day, okay, it's probably going to be these 5 that are going for the podium, and then the bottom 5 are going to continue to take bottom 5 finishes.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that they announced is for this upcoming year, at least, the online portion of the seasons are going to be similar to what we have seen in the past. So there aren't any live qualifying events. I think that especially knowing that the addition of more spots at the games in the divisions with high numbers of registrations, especially which is generally the lower age divisions for the Masters, makes a ton of sense. If it ended up evolving to a place where there were live qualifiers for the CrossFit Games that can maybe touch on a little bit more of the elements that are needed to excel at the games, do you think we could potentially see a regression of number of spots because of the higher level of qualifying procedure?
I hope not. I would hope that with the years comes growth. And while there may be, 5,000 people in the 35 to 39 this year, that maybe that's the 45 to 49 in the next couple years. So with that, you can have it broken down into smaller chunks so that maybe the top 50 or the top 100 qualify to in-person semifinal. And there are 2 in-person semifinals, and you have 50 and 50. And then from there, you go to the top 20 or the top 25.
I think a lot of opportunity and room for those things to evolve over a couple of years. Fun to talk about now. But for next year, at least, we can expect online qualifiers leading to a more populated CrossFit Games field for the Masters divisions. I did want to ask you about the adaptive, since you coached Noelle this year to the CrossFit Games. You got to experience the entire process of that season from beginning to end for her. And I don't know if you've been to WheelWOD before. I'm going to be going this year for the first.
I have been. Yeah.
So you know those people, you know kind of what that is like. And they've announced something quite different here than they did for the Masters and the teenagers, at least the way that I read it, which is the WheelWOD working alongside CrossFit is going to be responsible for their whole season, open through finals. So, a lot of people probably don't have as intimate of an experience in the adaptive community at the highest level of competition as you do. What can you say about that?
I think that having all the divisions compete in person is a huge plus because it's unfortunate that only a select number of divisions in the adaptive division got to compete at the games. I've been to WheelWOD 2 years ago when Noelle barely missed out on the games. She went to WheelWOD, and dude, the environment there, and I can equate it a little bit to Crash and having like that local competition feel, but having the crowd and having the level of athlete. I mean, there are a lot of like all the athletes I saw at the games. Like I remember seeing most of them at WheelWOD, and like to me, this is a huge step in the right direction for the adaptive community. And I'm hoping to talk to Noelle. She was just working out at 12 when I was coaching, and I hadn't even seen that the announcement had been released. So I'm curious to know how she feels. I know she's not planning on doing WheelWOD this year, just not really ready to think about competing again after the games. But I'm curious her thoughts, and then people she's close with in the community that she could actually text and say, hey, what do you think? Do you think this is a good thing? Are you excited about it? Are you let down by it? Do you think it's in the hands of the people that really need to have it now, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Just, it's that community. I'm excited to go learn more about WheelWOD this year and see an adaptive only competition for the first time. But, they can give the amount of care that's probably deserving to those divisions. That's difficult to give if you're not involved in that, even from a programming perspective.
Absolutely.
It's very difficult to write workouts that are going to actually get the stimulus that you want when you can't necessarily test them yourselves in the way that it's going to feel to do that for someone with those variety of different limitations. So I think that's a really big one. Anything else you want to say about the announcements for today? Otherwise, I'm going to ask you about Crucible a little bit, if you don't mind.
No, I think a lot of people were wondering if this was coming, and if it was, when it would be announced, especially after the venue for the games next season was announced. So I'm glad that it's out and people can start to process it and, deal with good emotions or bad emotions if they have it.
Yeah. And hopefully the follow-up to this is going to be the when and the where, which people will also obviously like to know so they can start planning. The elite already know where they're going and what days. So I think that the rest of the divisions can expect the same. I'm sure that that's only lacking right now because they haven't, dotted the I's and crossed the T's on all the contracts and whatever needs to be done. But hopefully that'll follow. And as we mentioned at the start, we're going to have a chance to get Kevin Ogar on next week, Brock Yost on next week, and hopefully someone from the Legends Championship as well to give us some perspective from the organizational side of things. JR, what's that over your shoulder there?
Yeah, it's one of the trophies. This was like maybe a rough draft, and
Oh, really? It's not even one of the final ones.
no, this is just mine for the office because it doesn't say the division or first or second or whatever. So this is just a keepsake. It's pretty cool though. It's a really nice touch to the leaders' jerseys and all that kind of stuff that we're trying to do to just kind of make everything feel a little more legitimate, special, unique, whatever adjective you want to use.
So this is year 4 for the Crash Crucible, correct?
Correct.
And very similarly to the Legends Championship, the Pitt Teen Throwdown that were kind of born out of the COVID shutdowns. You were able to run a competition back in 2020 that was pretty high level when no one else was really doing it.
Right. Yeah. Just when no one else was really willing to let their competition go on, I decided to at least do my best to give all these athletes, especially the ones locally, and I say locally, like within a 3 or 4 mile radius, just give them a backdrop to do what they've been training all year to do. And that was just to compete against one another. So we didn't screw it up too badly. There were a lot of things we did that first year that I can't even believe people decided to come back in 2021. But maybe it was just because it was a new gym and everything looked good. But hopefully we've improved year after year. And yeah, now it's starting to get some really good traction, starting to get some interest from higher level competitors. And while the prize purse hasn't really changed a whole lot since that first year, it kind of speaks to the experience of the competition. And that's what makes me the most proud.
And every year you're always trying to push some things forward. What are some of the things that this year's version will offer that the past years have not?
Yeah, I mean, something I always wanted to do was to try to prove to others that you could legitimately take a whole competition or years of competitions programmed by someone else, tweak them a little bit, add some unique elements to make them your own, but also have them work collectively for a really well-rounded test. So the retour is something that I decided last year, really when the competition was over, that I wanted to try to do. West Coast Classic and some other competitions have done some similar things where they took old regionals workouts or iterations of games workouts and kind of put them all together. And I decided I just wanted to really go for it. It's really tough to do. At the end of all of it, I can say I'm really looking forward to just programming my own workouts 100% moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have had conversations about that and the process for a better part of a year now. And so I've gotten to see on the back end some of the decisions you've tried to make here or there. This is a cool post. These are some of the past champions from Crucible, or all the past champions, right?
All the past champs, yeah. So 2020, Kalarina Key and Jason. And then year 2, Shelby Neal and Taylor Self. And then last year, Shaylin Laurie and Luke Parker.
And if you're not an aficionado of CrossFit lore, every single year there's been a winner of Crucible who's gone on to qualify for the games as a rookie the following season.
Correct.
Ooh. It's like the reverse Madden curse.
Jason and then Shelby and then Luke. I don't know if it'll happen again in year 4 or not, but it is a pretty cool trend to have.
Yeah, as excited as I am to see some athletes who have already established themselves as games athletes. If someone comes up and wins, I mean, I can only surmise that in these fields, someone who hasn't qualified for the games winning Crucible and not making the games is going to be like difficult. I think if someone wins, especially in the male division, that hasn't qualified, I would pencil them in as a games qualifier this year.
Yeah, and when you see, Colton Mertens and James Sprague on the list, like you have to beat those guys if you want to win this competition. So that would be quite an accomplishment. And there are some guys that could potentially have a chance too.
For sure. Yeah.
But it's actually the women's turn this year. We had the male, female, male.
There you go.
We might be looking to the women's division for a potential games rookie coming out of Crucible with a win this weekend. We shall see. And then besides that, well, as you see on this post on the right side, you're going to have a broadcast this year, which is the first time I did a little fake broadcast of Crescendo last year on Instagram Live, but this will be the first actual broadcast of the competition. And you've been working pretty hard to try to make that great.
Yeah, I've just been trying to at least do my part with very little tech savvy to try to get the best possible, I guess, environment for the stream. And that just means, upgrading to a faster speed of internet, making sure that we've got different switches at different parts of the gym where we can hardwire into those directly into the cameras that are going to be showing the field of play, so that, people that are in the area using the Wi-Fi or using surrounding Wi-Fi's doesn't slow it down, doesn't make it choppy. And I'm confident after a little test run that we did last weekend that everything should be for the viewers as high quality as we can. I mean, obviously we'll know that you'll give them lots of information, lots of good commentary. We're hopefully going to have a lot of guest commentators over the course of the weekend, anchored by you and Sevon. Yeah.
Including you as one of those guest commentators?
I would love to. You know how I am, though. I'm like I walk 10 miles in 3 days, pacing back and forth in 50-foot increments. So,
well, we have a mobile headset, so you can pace around while we're talking to you.
I would love to do that. Yeah, and I've had a lot of people who aren't competing test the workouts. Some that are going to be there on site. I mean, Jason will be there hanging out. James is staying with him all week, so he'll be around. He'll be training at the barn, I'm sure, but he'll be back and forth watching. Taylor Self did a lot of the workouts and testing. I would love for him to come on and speak to what he felt during the workouts and maybe talk about what the athletes are going to be going through. Even some remotely. John Young did the thruster workout. It'd be cool to get him on to talk about where he thinks the sticking point's going to be. So yeah, I'm really excited to have kind of a revolving door of guests that can come on and maybe provide some comedic relief, but then also give some really cool insights.
And how many years running is it now that you've had Masters as part of this?
So this is the first year. We did the retour as kind of just a one-off year, but Masters is something I hope is anything but a one-off. I feel really strongly, having been a Masters athlete now for 3 years and seeing a lot of the Crucible alum age up into that division. People like Mark Hutchinson, Mark Kwan will be doing it soon. Hudson Fricky is now a master coming up in 2024. That, especially the 35 to 40-year-old division, are capable of these workouts. They're capable of doing these workouts and not just doing them, but competing with the individuals. And I'd be lying if I said that I didn't choose events that I also thought we would be able to use for cross comparison. Like, do I think Amy Fritt has a chance to put up a top 10 time in the individual field on the handstand course? Absolutely. Do I think that someone like Carolyn Klutz could put up a time on the pegboard workout that's going to be competitive in the female division, open division? Absolutely. Like, there are lots of athletes competing in the Masters division. I mean, if you put Elijah Muhammad, if you put Mark Hutchinson in that field on the thruster ladder, no one's going to think that they're taking anything outside the top 10. So it's going to be really cool to see a lot of legends, because, I mean, Kinsey Riley, Elijah Muhammad, or even Irving Hernandez, like people who have been around a long time see some of these names and they're like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen that person compete since like Atlanta in 2015 or 2016. So I'm just as excited about seeing the Masters compete. And the way that the schedule is set up, they're going to be going right before the individual females and males. So you'll have event 1, 2 heats of Masters females right into individual females doing the exact same workout, same weights, same number of reps, same deficits on handstand push-ups. Nothing is going to change. And we'll see if that ends up being a good call or a bad call.
Yeah, Irving Hernandez, sneaky. We're going to see how he does on that hundreds workout.
Yeah, I mean, he's known for a lot of things in CrossFit. I kind of wish I would have put some double unders in there just because I remember how crazy he was at double unders back in the day. And I assume that's a skill that probably hasn't left him.
No, likely not. I think once you got that one, it sticks for a while. And then there is a teams division. You don't always do teams at this time of the year. How many years have you done teams in the fall?
So I've actually done teams every year at Crucible. Last year, there were a couple local teams, especially, that had barely missed out on games. So they were really hungry to get back on the competition floor. And we ended up having last year two CrossFit Games qualifying teams come and do the October competition. Then in the spring, everyone kind of knows that Crescendo is the team prep competition for the games season. So this will be the last year we do teams at Crucible. They're all but let's see, 4 of the 6 here are what I would call local teams. So like within a 2-hour radius of Crash. And there are some still really talented teams. I mean, there are games teams athletes in this field. And there are a handful of semifinal teams athletes. So those events are all reprogrammed versions of semifinals and games workouts also. There are some elements that cross over with the individual and team division, but not a ton. They're both doing a thruster ladder iteration from that year at regionals, which I really wanted to use as the strength test. And then they both get their hands on some sandbags. The teams go over a yoke, like a sandbag load, and the individuals go to the shoulder with a carry. Both are doing flip sled. Both are on the rings, but just not in the same variations.
Yeah, so it should be a great weekend. As JR said, we're going to try to live stream most, if not all, of the coverage. It might be with some different people, some different levels of depth in terms of mobile cameras on the floor. We have a couple friendly faces coming to run some cameras, but it's long days, so we should try to show as much as we can, give you guys as much information. All that's going to be on Savon's podcast. He and I will be there for a majority of the time. Peter Coffee Pods and WODs is going to be in town. He's going to jump in and do some hosting and commentary. Like JR said, we'll have a bunch of different people cycling through to provide some insights, comedic relief, if he wants to call it that. And we'll try to get him in there once or twice, maybe. See how he's feeling as things are unfolding before him. But should be really fun. I'm looking forward to getting out there Thursday and getting to work.
Yeah, next 48 hours are kind of when everything has to get done. Can't get done earlier, can't get done later. So the next 48 hours are full steam ahead for sure.
Anything else you want to say about the announcements today or Crucible before the weekend starts?
No, I'm just really grateful to have so many people here at the gym and then remotely, you and others that are wanting to be like an integral piece to try to grow it. It's been it's really gratifying.
I can tell
JR,
you guys,
if someone wanted to come watch live, what do they need to know?
Thank you. Yeah, so we're gonna get the schedules posted. We'll either get a link to a Google Doc that's shareable, but the schedule itself is going to be posted to the Instagram page. That will not change. What people need to know is we will shuffle the leaderboard at the end of each competition day. So while you'll be able to go on and see exactly where everyone is doing events 1 and 2 for Friday, that will all change on Saturday and that will all change on Sunday. And then we'll reshuffle again going into the finale. So we're going to try to make it as legitimate as possible with the schedule, but you'll at least be able to see the windows of okay, I want to watch the females do the handstand obstacle course. So I know I need to be watching from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So you'll still be able to go on and look at that kind of stuff. And it's 100% free for spectators this year. So hopefully we'll have a ton of people out to watch.
Will you have food options out there or anything like that?
Yeah, we'll have vendors out. We actually have a lot more vendors this year than we have had in years past. So that's an area of growth that I'm pretty proud of too. A lot of local people, but then, Travis from Vindicate will be out there. We'll have Lean Kitchen as a local food vendor that'll be out there. We've got a cold plunge setup coming back that a lot of people have been asking about. A lot of athletes have been asking about. So it's good to know that she'll be getting some work. I guess they think the competitions will be a little aggressive, or the events are going to be aggressive enough to need it. So that's a good thing.
Well, cool. If you're in the area, definitely stop by. You can see some, obviously you've seen the list of athletes. I'm excited. I already have like Brian brought up, there's usually athletes and rookies that kind of like, you know, they do really well there or win, they move on. There's 2 athletes, one in the men and one in the women's that I'm particularly looking at. I'm looking at you, William Leahy, and Chloe Wilson. Those are my 2 picks right now in terms of could possibly win and make it to the games. So, but
I like it. I think a lot of people are with you on that.
Yeah, those are the 2. But I would love to see someone like Seth Stovall, who I think has an immense amount of talent. He could be this year's Luke Parker as well. But I don't know.
No
It's
doubt.
pretty cool. But they're going to be competing against some beasts there. Like you said, you have Sprague and you have Colton there. But what I've seen from the program, what I've heard about, it's going to be pretty. It's not going to favor anybody.
Yeah, it's interesting with the programming. A lot of times you can look at a competition, look at the field, you can look at the events, and you can say, okay, that person, that person, that person, that person. But how many people have done a competition with a pegboard at all? You've done them in your gym, but have you done them for time? Not many. How many people have done 300 feet of obstacle in a workout? Not many. How many people have even tested a thruster ladder? I mean, a lot of them have done that snatch ladder, but how many of them have done thruster ladder? How many of them have done a long workout that's got 400 reps? Like that's very old school. Not a lot of people program like that in competitions anymore. So there are a lot of unknowns. How many people are going to be good on the parallettes after all those ring muscle ups? Like there's not a lot of competitions you can look for and look at to say, okay, based on these 7 events, this is who I think is going to do great. You may have an idea of who's going to do well in some workouts and just because of overall fitness. But for me, at least, going through and trying to come up with 5 people who I think could win each workout was almost impossible because I just have nothing to go off of with a lot of these guys and girls.
JR, are you and Taylor, are you guys going to have a Shut Up and Scribble this week?
That's still the plan. Yes. It might be live from Crash as people are checking in, and that's cool if we want to do that. Because that's going to be, Thursday from noon until 8 is official check-in time for the athletes. So that's right in the middle of that. But I wouldn't be opposed to getting on and maybe just having people jump on and saying hello, maybe having Taylor ask him like, what event are you looking most forward to? What event scares you for this weekend? Like all that kind of stuff might be cool and raw to just do that.
I like that. That's pretty cool. So obviously the competition will be available, streamed live on Sevon's channel. You'll be able to follow leaderboards and everything on Instagram. And are you Competition Corner or who's doing your leaderboards?
Yeah, local comp is actually still doing the leaderboard for me. She's been helping me out since year 1, and Jen is awesome. She's now like she's now a big deal in the working for HQ in the affiliate department. I think she's the
Awesome.
US like head of affiliates like in the entire country. Like she's a big deal. I'm lucky that she even wants to put up with my bull crap for twice a year every year. So I'm thankful for Jen, and she'll be on site with Tyler doing the scoring and stuff live. So that'll be interesting to see. And then for people not to get too bogged down with, but remember, Crucible is performance-based scoring. And a lot of people look at these workouts and say, that time cap seems very generous. Like, don't you think someone's going to do that workout in 3 or 4 minutes? Absolutely. And I think some people are going to get capped at 10 minutes, and you need that. You need that for a scoring system. You want people that are going to bomb to really bomb, and you want people who are going to be able to separate from the field to really show how much better they are. So we can get more into that with Tyler when he's on to talk about it. But yeah, having scoring based on performance and not based on placement is definitely going to be something I think a lot of the athletes who haven't done it before are going to be pretty shocked, good and bad, once the competition gets going.
And we did Z-score last year.
Right.
This is a little bit of a refinement of that performance-based scoring that Tyler has been working on for the better part of the year, a couple of years really. And so, we will give you guys a full breakdown of what that is, what that means, how it can apply to some of these during the stream this weekend. But it is another nuance about the Crucible that's it's a little different than you might be used to. Yeah,
and it's here to stay. It's something, if I'm going to try to do some unique things, I might as well just kind of have certain things that are just like a part of what you're going to get when you come to Crucible. One of them
Yeah.
is going to be that you get scored based on performance. I think I'm confident to keep that, and as long as I have people like Brian and Tyler who can scramble and figure out really quick math to know who needs to do what on workouts like a back-to-back finale, if it works this year, it can work in a year.
I agree.
Making it super easy for us. I love it.
Yeah, so you heard it here. Again, they do plan on having him and Taylor do plan on having a Shop and Scribble this week. So, but a lot of cool stuff happened this weekend. I can't be there, but I'm gonna be watching. Obviously, it's gonna be. I'm looking forward to hear Brian and Sevon both broadcast. I mean, that's gonna be crazy. Just to hear. I don't know. I don't know what to expect, but it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be entertaining, and I'm sure you're gonna get a lot of eyes on the competition. And this hopefully, like we've had conversations, this builds up to your other competitions. Most notably Crash Crescendo. But yeah, thanks for coming on with us as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me on short notice. That was cool.
Always, you're always welcome. So, I mean, with that being said, be friendly, our friends. Thanks for joining us.